Hey everybody, this is Scott from Lawrence Hypnotherapy and welcome back. Today I have an amazing guest, Melissa Heeman. Welcome to the video.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to ask you questions about, there's a framework that you've come up with. So you're the co-founder of the Center for Healing. You've got a background in NLP, timeline hypnotherapy, and you've grown from, like, say, there was the team of 5. And then as you've had now a child, so there's you and there's Ryan, that's your partner. And then now having practitioners all around the world that you help, you've got a particular type of therapy that has spread kind of everywhere and different from a lot of other types of therapies. That this particular model, it's a lot more close to guaranteed to finding the right answers, because it's a simple framework that has an easy learning curve, but relies on their own subconscious without just saying like, hey, you just come up with the answer. It's a bit more sophisticated than that, but it still absolutely comes directly from their subconscious. So I'm really excited to hear some of that. If we can kind of talk about it, maybe like a demonstration story, so that people can, from this, even just like, take something away and add it to their own practice, perhaps like find out more about you if they'd like to connect with you as well. So to begin with, what I'd love to ask you is, what got you into this? Or like, how is, what's the condition of the world today, would you say, if we were to start there? What would you say is the condition of the world, and why do people basically need to even do therapies at the moment, would you say?
I would say that with all this fear and lockdown and, having to listen to authorities to run our life, there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, triggering. We're getting triggered for any authority issues that we've had. So like with our parents growing up. Also with people having to really meet themselves, so they don't have all the distractions of going out, of like seeing people when they're feeling lonely. So over the last few years, a lot of people have had to like sit with themselves, and a lot of stuff is coming up, and people are getting flashbacks with trauma and things like that, which we are very passionate about, helping people heal trauma. So I think with this upsurgence of mental health issues, I think people talking about it more, and this industry is really blowing up. It feels kind of mean to say that. It feels kind of mean to say, oh, we're doing really well as practitioners because everyone's mental health is terrible. But actually, I think people have always been like that. But now that stigma is going away, and now it's just being thrown in people's faces. So the stigma is naturally going down, and people are reaching out for help. So that's just my opinion. It's been really hard and heartbreaking for people, but it's really woken a lot of people up at the same time to start working on themselves.
Absolutely. Like these therapies, NLP, timeline, hypnotherapy, like the 80s was all about like music and hair, and the 90s, different music, denim, different hair perhaps. But these days, like with, there's been, as you were saying, like a real upsurgence in people that are taking on alternative therapies, and the knowing that they have this need within themselves to look at themselves and say like, well, am I going to continue along this path, or would I like to change? What got you into this? Like, what is one of the first things that really got you excited about just generally the field of psychology?
Well, if you knew any of my friends from back before I got into this stuff, they would be like, no way, like, would I be into this? Because they kind of saw me as a party girl and just ruining relationships, burning every bridge that I went along. But basically, it was probably the classic story for a lot of us that go into self-help, is that I got to the point where I'm like, these drugs, this alcohol, or like, why do I keep like ruining my relationships? Why do I keep ruining my life? And I kind of hit rock bottom. And after me trying to do positive thinking and manifesting and all of these things, I realized I had to ask for help. And it was a breakdown of like 2 relationships, lost my second house. It was, the red wine wasn't working. I just needed someone to help. And luckily that's a session I walked into, as a timeline NLP kind of session. And that woke me up. So any of you that are spiritual, or even not spiritual, just becoming conscious of your subconscious, like, it completely changed my perspective. And after a little while, I wanted to study it. So I studied it, handed in my resignation 2 weeks later, and that was
Wow.
7 years ago. So here we are today, and just been doing it pretty much full time since then because I love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something I've noticed in talking to a lot of people that have done hypnotherapy, coaching, and NLP, time, and all these things, the ones that tend to build their practices, they seem to have like this bubble of time where they just like, boom, they just like smash it out. They build a clinic.
Yep.
And I haven't really seen too many exceptions. I haven't seen anyone really build a clinic over 3 years as much. Like they can expand it and grow it over 3 years. But that initial thing of like, boom, I have a clinic, it seems to be more like, as you were saying, the rock bottom, the realization, and then like running with like, I have to do something different.
That's right. And with that excitement and that awakening, like your inner flow. So I remember like I got my certification and I just did a post on my social media, got some clients, saw them at home, thought I don't want to do it at home. I want to get an office, walk down, like all of a sudden I had this confidence. So I walked down the street and went door knocking in the main street, like where the shops were near my house in Chelsea, Victoria, if anyone knows of that
Oh,
area. And I literally like walked into a place and I saw there was this guy standing there and he had furniture and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for somewhere to practice. Like, do you have anything available?" And he goes, "Well, actually, I'm about to move out of here. We've just moved offices. I can leave you all the furniture." And I'm like, "Awesome. I'll make it a co-working space and take one of the offices." Didn't have to pay rent basically. Had like a team of amazing entrepreneurs around me and didn't have to pay a bond or anything. It just went bang, bang, bang like
wow.
that. It was just like because when I was in that energy, I just like yeah, like you said, I just went for it. And so yeah, I think that's like and that just momentum. Sure, I've had times where it was really hard and I ended up leaving that office, but it always gets better and better. I have that belief. So yeah,
Yeah. It kind of looks like that. It's like the method to get it done seems to be like there's steps, but it seems to be like there's some kind of a trauma that sets people off, and then there's a healing where they realize they've got to sort of get on with things, and then there's the steps, and we can sometimes forget about like the trauma than the healing and be like to do
yeah,
these steps, and like when we just teach steps to people sometimes like without sort of going, well, we came from somewhere too. It
yeah,
can sometimes like miss like the entirety of the story, which is there needs to be like a force that sort of powers it, or at least an attractive element that sort of moves you towards it. Because I don't know if
yeah,
you've seen, Esther Hicks or the Abraham Hicks stuff,
yeah, yeah,
talking about like lowering that resistance. And like
yeah,
you just so good things just seem to happen. It's like there's times where like whether this is just how you're translating it or what really happened, it's like there wasn't a single obstacle. It's just like doors open, literally the door to your office, like someone's
yeah,
there, opens the door and let you into your new office. Furniture, everything's
yeah.
ready for you. Hope you like it.
Because I didn't
Um,
have that resistance, that fear to that coming into my experience, I guess, and I just went for it. Yeah,
Absolutely. So like it doesn't need to be as hard as what sometimes people could be making it.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and I love that saying of that you can't grow a tree where there's no tree. Sorry, you can't grow a tree where there's no room for a tree to grow.
Mm,
So it's like when people clear that stuff, which really, if that can sort of like lead us into the next part, that I would love to hear about. There's a process that you've come up with, like to do with trauma, but like the one that's called root cause therapy. So in the name, it seems to kind of make sense as to what it's about. It's like to do with the root cause, and it's
yeah,
therapy about the root cause.
yeah.
Um, if there was like a way to like a quick way to summarize it, and then just to say like what it is that you actually do,
Hmm.
what is it?
Yeah. So, okay, so root cause therapy is a step-by-step process where we go through testing and kind of measuring and holistically looking at someone's life. And then we go in and we ask the subconscious, literally, like, what is the root cause of whatever symptomology we're looking at. The whole thing with root cause therapy is they're not very deep, and I know a lot of your people that are watching this are into hypnotherapy, but for us, it's working on all levels of consciousness at the same time. So your conscious, subconscious, unconscious, and the body. So they're fully conscious while they're doing it, but they're going there. It's mostly regression. I would say 80% of the sessions are regression, but we also do progression. So we take someone out to see their own future because that in itself can be healing if they've never experienced a certain emotion, they've never felt peace or love, or we need advice from their future self. And it's a very empowering process because you're just creating the space for the client to heal themselves, but with a set framework so you know exactly what you're doing at every point of the session and from session to session, and you're prioritizing. So the client's not going around in circles doing talk therapy or repeating, and it has a set way to see what's been shifted and what we still need to work on, where there's no assumptions being made. So there is applied applied kinesiology element in it when we're doing the what's called testing sheet, which I'm happy to share on my screen, by the way. I've already got it up. I didn't know how much you wanted me to show.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
enabled the screen sharing, so
Oh, yeah, thank you. So I'll go share screen. Sorry, gonna see everything else. I thought it was up. Oh, here we go. So this is basically the testing sheet. So this is what we do with each person in a session. So I have blended about 10 different therapies, right? So this is just like, for me, because my background was in really nothing to do with this, but import export in international business. So I'm very like paperwork, everything has to be in like in logical steps. So this kind of comes through in the therapy, but basically we're checking in with someone like emotionally, like so if I say anger, who or what comes up from you from birth to now. So, and then we're going to get all those details to see what is currently activated or holding them back in their system. Of course, we're going to get their overall goal and a goal in each session as well, what they want to achieve. Then I like to see, like, instead of us assessing how the client's going or just asking them, I like data. So we get all this data from the client, either in the session or just prior to the session. I like to automate things, so I send a thing now to get those numbers. And so we're seeing what's happening in every area of their life, and from session to session, we've literally got data of what's shifting. So there's no need to try and what's the word? Try and tell the client like you're doing better in this area, or like they've got those actual numbers, and we've got the numbers as well. Then we want to look at thoughts, usages, behaviors. So these are individual things that we can look at because, like I said, we have the mental health and addiction clinic. So we had a lot of people with addictions, things like that. So we hardly even spoke to them about, okay, this is how you cut down or anything like that. It's just like, what thought comes up before you want to use, or how do you feel before you want to use, and how often are you using? And let's just monitor that. And as you start to heal, that will naturally shift anyway. And we use Dr. Hawkins' scale of consciousness to explain that. If anyone's interested in that, look at that. That was a lot of influencer work for me to overcome my addictions. And then when I met Ryan, and he had an ice and GHB addiction, he stopped after this session. He stopped using after that first session. He hasn't used since. And so that was kind of like why we opened an addiction clinic, because he started sending me all of his friends as well. And then we look at, okay, what physical issues are going on. And with root cause therapy, you can ask, what is the root cause of your back pain? What is the root cause of your cancer? Whatever. And the subconscious, the intelligence of the body knows, and it will take you to there. And I've helped people overcome stage 4 cancer. I've had other people that were meant to have surgery and stuff like that haven't. Not saying that it's a cure for it, and that we say you can definitely do it, but there's layers that you can get to that can definitely shift it. And then we work with limiting beliefs. So we are using applied kinesiology. This can be done in person or online because we get them to do it themselves. And we just check and see what limiting beliefs are at play. And then we kind of like, this is like something you can just glance at and see everything that you're dealing with for that client, right? And then you can kind of ascertain, okay, what's a priority for this session? What will be the top 3 that would help with this client's current issue? So it might be that they have anxiety, and after hearing all that stuff, you feel like, well, maybe when they get anxiety, it's usually when they're on their own. So I'm alone. I fear rejection, and I fear abandonment. Maybe are the things that highlight. Now, the awesome thing about this is, I'll stop sharing now because I can go back into it. The awesome thing about this is that we are just helping the clients heal themselves. So when we actually go into with them into their subconscious, we're asking, firstly, can we do a healing today? Because sometimes the subconscious is like, no, we don't want to do one today. 99% of the time it's a yes. Then we ask specifically, can we work on this particular thing? So this particular traumatic event that happened in their life, or this particular limiting belief or physical issue. And it will say yes or no. And if it says no, we've got more stuff lined up on that sheet that we can just jump to. Then if it says yes, then it takes us back to whatever the root cause is, and they get to experience that through their own eyes. So I can give an example if you want, like from myself. So, and I'm always like trying to be trauma informed, so I won't give I won't maybe do one that might feel unsafe to people. But I had this really weird thing that I would do where I would get really nervous about eating out, and I would have thoughts when I'm sitting there eating out, like, oh, there's not enough food. I shouldn't like eat this. Like, is there enough food in the world? And I would find it really hard to go to the supermarket and buy food because I had this same like really weird thought of there's just not enough food in the world, like a real scarcity vibe around it. And I was like, that's weird. It probably affected some parts of my life. Obviously, I couldn't go out and enjoy dinner and lunch and things like that. Anyway, I decided to have a session done because I receive root cause therapy sessions every month because I haven't found another therapy that's as good, but obviously I'm biased. But one of the girls that I train personally, I get sessions from her. Anyway, so I went, when we asked our subconscious, like, what is the root cause, I went back and I was in the kitchen and it said generational. So you can go to past life or generational trauma. I went before birth, so not in the womb, not this life, but generational. And there's a lot of studies on generational traumas as well that you can look into if you're not really into it. Or you can look into epigenetics. So basically, I went back and I was in the kitchen and I had like a baby in my arm. I had a young girl next to me holding another baby. I had two toddlers next to me, and I just felt so stressed and upset, like that I only had some rice for them. And then I realized I am my grandma in Sri Lanka when they didn't have much, right, at one point. And so anyway, I felt all of the emotions that she felt, and I was able to release those, all the stress and not feeling good enough and not feeling like there's enough food and for all these little children. And I always take these things with a grain of salt because I think maybe the subconscious is just showing us something just to help us heal our current issue. Like sometimes it's, could not be true. So I processed it, released it, everything flashed up on the way back that was linked to that. I have to add though that anyone that's done NLP, timeline therapy and hypnotherapy, I have changed it a lot because I found there was a lot of reframing. And with reframing, you're just pushing the emotions deeper into the nervous system and the subconscious, causing more breakage. There's less healing, right? Because it's in a trauma, the emotions, the picture, and the story around it is separated so we can continue to survive. But that's why we have all these symptoms and we don't know why we have them. That's a frustrating.
Can we go through some perhaps examples of, like, say, a reframe versus the actual healing?
Yeah.
Like,
so what I was taught originally is that if I was in that event, to make myself feel better, the practitioner and I would have to try and get learnings to reframe out of the emotions. So it might be like, well, at least I do have rice. It's kind of like positive thinking if you were to think of it now. So it's like trying to find the silver lining. At least they're all still alive. And so that kind of reframing. And so that's just kind of
I've got 3 wheels left on the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, do you know Pollyanna?
No.
This girl, like in this show that's very old now, that it was even before my generation, but like when the people around her would say like, oh, it's Monday again, she's like, on the bright side, it's only 4 more days to Friday.
Yeah, right.
And that became like Pollyanna-ish or a Pollyannaism.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, awesome. So yeah, it's kind of like, well, there's a filter there of how you're feeling, and you're projecting that story onto that event, and you're just trying to change the story, which you think would change the feeling. But
Mm,
actually, when you think about it, in my nervous system now, is that is in my DNA getting activated, and all the times I felt like crap going out to eat is still stuck in my body. They are undigested, unprocessed emotions still in my body. So by me reframing and trying to be positive, it is actually pushing that emotion down further, which is like the opposite that we want to do when you're looking at like somatic therapies and things like that.
mm,
So how I changed it is actually getting them to feel the emotions, because usually out of survival or not wanting to make other people upset, we suppress how we're feeling. So in that moment, she didn't want to show to all her kids and have a breakdown that she can't feed them, right?
yeah.
And so she's locked that into her body, and that's why it's passed down to me 2 generations, because the
Mm,
story and the beliefs are only locked in by the emotions. And so basically what I do is I get someone to process. So in that event, the practitioner will help me to actually turn up the emotions a bit to fully feel it, so they can complete their processing. So it can, because emotions are meant to move through you like a wave. So it only takes 30 to 60 seconds, release, release, however many emotions. Then with that, those, when you're emotional, you don't always make the best decisions. So now though that filter's gone, now naturally the wisdom, now naturally the learnings that come from a neutral, wise space can then drop in naturally,
mm,
right? So now you're helping the client tap into their innate wisdom, getting the wisdom themselves. Yes, we can chuck a few suggestions in there, but because they're still fully conscious, it's only a slight trance. Their critical mind is still there, and they can say, "Nah, that doesn't really resonate," or "Oh, yeah, yeah, that makes
mm.
sense." So that's like this therapy is really safe in that sense for the practitioner and for the client. Um,
I like it.
yeah, so if you don't stop
Because
me, I'll just keep going, blah, blah, blah.
it sounds like a lot more holistic than perhaps like a lot of other styles. Because like, let's say, if you could tell me, like, does this sound correct or not? It's like there's two poisons, and one is kind of like almost like their vibration or their habits, the things that they're doing every day, and they're planting kind of like sometimes this like either angry or hurt or something, these seeds like focusing just on the negative. And another poison is the root cause itself that hurt them. And so then therapies tend to sort of talk about either one or the other, and sort of go like, oh, if it's, let's just say it's your vibration, it's your habits. Let's say like people give away the happiness too much or too cheaply. They're basically saying put on a happy face and you will plant better seeds. I'm like, yeah, that's true, but that root cause is still there, informing through all the layers. That no matter how happy of a face you put on, no matter how much you fix your habits, if you don't get the other half as well, which is the root cause, the thing that was actually causing them issues, it's like when the smoke alarm's going off and you're like, oh, well, let's put on a happy face. Let's turn off the smoke alarm. It's like, yeah, but what about the fire? um,
Exactly.
so if you don't get both, it's like you want to get your daily habits, but
Yeah.
you want to get that root cause that's informing the daily habits. It's like if someone has like really bad posture, the way they sit, and
Yeah.
then they get a massage and they're like, everything's great again for a day
Yeah.
or two or three, and
Yes.
then they go back to the old.
And that's
They,
the frustration that I had. Like when I went and got a Reiki session for my anxiety, when I went and tried a couple of little things, I'm like, that did make me feel better for a day or two, but it didn't actually like heal it. And the other thing that practitioners make a mistake of, I guess, even mainstream therapies, is like, oh, you're only people pleasing because your parents were like this too, and your mum was like this. Yes, we can make the assumptions, but the amount
mm,
of times that I thought that about myself, oh, it must be coming from this. And when I did root cause therapy, it was something much, much deeper. Like literally the root was so much deeper than I thought. And if I didn't like get to that root, that would just grow back again later,
yeah,
the actual deep root. And that's why it's so exciting, is that we don't have to have all these um, assumptions being made, or because that, like, how do you know? You don't know, but the body knows where it is, and where you
yeah,
need to go. And so when you add the somatic element of releasing the emotions, you've just released that whole that deep pattern on that level. And the awesome thing is that, especially like if we go to inner child stuff, is like we get the information that we have now, and take it back to our younger selves. Yeah, so it's really cool. So I've kind of gone off track there, but yeah,
I love it. That's really cool.
yeah,
Because it sort of from everything that you've said, and from what I know about you, and you've seen, I've done this big deep dive into your videos and your contents, that you do come across like very nurturing and warm, and so that you're receptive, so that you let people in your tribe into your area, but you're so thorough as well. Like you've got this systemized way of thinking, as you were talking about, like whether it's the logistics of what was the job that you were doing, like with
yeah, so like import export, so a lot of like
yeah.
documentation and procedures and stuff.
Yeah. So like when you're working out, like, am I right? Am I wrong on this particular assumption about like what the root cause might be? Let's test your system, like whether it's like from like the critical analytical thinking because they're still awake, or like whether it's like from the subconscious response, or like the kinesiology, or the body, the soma that you bring into it. It's like that you're actually getting the feedback to kind of go, we can throw out a few questions in various ways using the systems very quickly, actually, and then get accurate answers that then helps you to then find, just like that game of Guess Who, like, you know, like with all the faces.
Yeah.
Like, are they wearing glasses? No. Okay, well then put them down for a moment. Let's see what's left. And then it's like detective work, but when you're actually paying attention to the answers. Unlike some TV shows, like where they're trying to show you a detective that's a superhero, he just knows things for no good reason, just because it's convenient to the plot. It's like that's not. I mean, the detective stuff we see is for entertainment. But this is like almost the true detective work, because you're actually recording it, and there's nothing like writing things down. There's like nothing else like it, because then you can go back and say that no matter what my memory says I wrote down, what I wrote down is what I wrote down.
And as a practitioner, and this is like when we started growing our center, so it was just me and Ryan, and then we moved into a bigger space. We had a team of 5, and we created systems and everything. And the big thing for me, as I said to my staff, is like our clients are VIP. Like every person is so, so special. And no matter like what they're struggling with, every person's so special. And I don't want them to feel like that we're like asking questions over and over, or them having to repeat themselves. I want you to make sure that you write your notes. I want you to make it easy for you, so you can not think about them in between sessions, but just before their session glance, and you've got everything there. And they feel like, wow, this person's so like professional and they care about me, but it also makes it easier for us, you know what I mean? Because we don't have to try and remember everything about that client as well. So that's the beauty of like keeping that framework there.
And how frustrating is it for clients that turn up to a some other person, whoever the somewhere out there person is, whatever their profession, and they take the client notes day after day because they didn't take the note, they didn't record them. And so it's like, all right, well, how are you going? It's like, I told you last time. And I love that you've got everything that you put out is the value base that informs everything else that you do. What would you say, like the values that you bring to your business, just if you were just to name a few of them, what would you say some of the main ones are?
Do you mean like in terms of what we teach practitioners, or just our business?
Even you and Ryan, like when you go to make a decision, or when you go to make a framework, and you say before you start like picking up the pen and paper, like what do you two say to each other? It's like when I've got a business partner, Jackie Hutton, and the two of us, before we do sales stuff, we say to ourselves, like, you know, the first sale is to yourself. So we don't say that to others, we say that to ourselves. Or that if we're going to do some marketing stuff, we basically say that the money is in the DDFF, which is like writing down the dreams, desires, fears, and frustrations. Instead of just writing ads and just chucking stuff out there, we go into depth about like who it is we're writing it for. And when we're doing the therapy stuff as well, it's like there's other things that we say to ourselves before going into a like that. Before a client comes and sees me, like I say to myself things like, you know, positive as in like I'm going to be here, I'm going to be present with them, not positive as in rainbow blast with them, but or I could say courage, strategy, gratitude, and say that I'm grateful that this person's trusted me to come and see them. The strategy, I want to make sure that I'm giving them my best intellect, as in like that it's going to actually serve them. It's going to be actually well researched. And the courage is in like, I'll help them no matter what. I'm not just going to back down just because I'm a little tired that day. I'll make sure that I get the early.
So we're not as like set as you, but I think after doing a lot of healing work, you naturally have more integrity. So our main framework that we use is actually, I don't know if you've heard of the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And now I can't remember it, but we had it on a big poster in our office. So it was like, never make assumptions, which is like the basis. Always do the best that you can or something. Now I can't remember them, but it's just kind of embedded in us. And so we've got that framework. And how we usually like create our what we're delivering is usually we're like, we needed this, and and then like how can and it's like, how can we get this out into the world in a way that's digestible, in a way that they can easily understand it? Because we don't want to pretend that we're like smarter than anyone or anything like that. We're all on the same level. So it's all about that. It's all about how can we deliver things in a way that they can just take it and go with it. They can embody it. They feel safe to do it. And that's kind of what we do. And the other thing that we do is, and a lot of business people say not to do this, but we do listen to our students and our clients and what they want. Like if we have people like for example, we've got embodied processing is Ryan and Matt's practitioner training, and mine's root cause therapy. Now a lot of our students ended up buying both. And then all of a sudden we had this flood of like, how do we do them both in a session together? And so for 3 months, we'd get these messages like every week. And then I said to Ryan, well, you do both of them in sessions. So can you do, like, what do you think about doing a workshop? He's like, yes, you got to give them what they want. Do you know what I mean? So we just made like a free workshop for them. So it's kind of like we're just responding to what people are needing and continually studying and then thinking, wow, this has blown my mind. I'm going to go with that energy and give that value to our community.
Yeah, I love like don't just assume your student's wrong. Because I think that it does seem like that sometimes the more personal success sometimes a coach has or a teacher has, the more that they can have that attitude that like students are wrong and you have to tell them they're wrong. And they might still be learning, but they still have valuable feedback that could be taken on board.
That's been a process for me because I'm like, no, it's perfect. And then like, and Ryan's really helped me with that, where someone will say something like, why don't you do it like this? And then I'm like my ego gets all defensive. And this has been like a 2-year process of me chipping away at that. And then Ryan's like, well, maybe be a little bit open because it might actually make it better, because you're getting people that have been counselors for 20 years, psychotherapists for 30 years. Like, I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I have over time become more and more open to that. So I totally get what you're saying there.
Yeah. I can see that the values that you have really come through in the work that you've created. Like if, let's say if all 4 Beatles could be here and we said, here's 4 chords, go make a song out of it. Then we get just like another random 4 people that have never picked up an instrument. So like, here's the 4 chords, you guys go make a song. They're not going to sound the same as each other. So is even though we've said like, here's the same 4 chords, the values that you have and the things that are important to you seem to have really come through like in what you give to people.
Thank you. I'm like trying to receive that. Yeah.
Sorry?
I'm trying to just receive that and say thanks, because I'm glad, because I am always working on authenticity and it's hard because in the online world, it's kind of like, because we're in the online world now, whereas before we had the in-person clinic.
Yeah.
It can be daunting, and you do need to regulate your nervous system to get on and do a live, unless there's like you and you've done it, like I've seen you over the years, like it's probably second nature to you. But it's kind of like, for me, it's like, can I be the same person with my partner, and then when I'm in front of a client and when I'm doing a live and when I'm by myself, think like reflecting, can I, like, how can I get that to be all the same person? So yeah, it's the journey.
Yeah. I think absolutely. I mean, the first time I tried to do a video, I hit record and then my brain just went blank.
Yeah. Your nervous system just went, not safe.
Yeah. And then I tried like a brute force attack with myself, and I've gone, I'm just going to stand there with it recording. It's not like an old 80s camera. And I've gone, I'm going to stand here until words come to me. And then 15 minutes passed and nothing came to my head.
I love it.
Whereas like standing in front of a crowd, you've got faces. It's like, I'm not talking to cameras, I'm talking to you, which is so different. And I think that like you want to be authentic on camera, but at the same time, I think the only difference like between like with your partner, it's like that on a camera, I'll be like, hey everyone, this is Scott from Lawrence, and it's like this burst of energy. And then I'll be a bit more organized with what I have to say, still authentic. but with like a friend or something, I'm not going to be like, oh, hey Matt, how you going today? We're gonna. So it's like the authenticity will be the same. The intensity might be different,
Yeah.
but absolutely the authenticity shouldn't change.
Yeah.
And then like finding like with one of the coaches I've had, like Brennan Bouchard, like saying he started with different pitches of voice, like like or hi everyone, and
Oh,
just trying to find like what's my sound. And
yeah, I
eventually he
love
just
it.
found you up the presence, but you don't necessarily need to change your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you can up your presence by slowing down with someone, and you can up your presence by speeding up a little bit in the first few seconds on camera. But
Yeah.
I'm just a big nerd when it comes to that stuff.
I
I
know.
just love.
I'm like, dude, you think into this a lot. I'm more like, I was at a birthday, a 1 year old birthday party the other day, one of Ryan's best friends, and with his daughter turning one. And he's just a guy who just wears his heart on his sleeve, and he'll just start doing his little, like, thanks everyone for coming, it means so much. And you can just tell that he's talking from his heart, and everyone just starts tearing up. He just like,
Yeah.
he I just feel it, and I'm like, everyone just goes real quiet. I'm like, oh my god, because he's like, thank you guys so much for coming. I couldn't have asked for it, and he just goes so vulnerable and so deep. I'm like, you're my inspiration, like, you know what I mean? I think, yeah, it's like it's not exactly what you say; it's why you're saying. It's your intention behind it, your energy behind it, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how there's the tools, which is the practical, and then the values that inform it.
Mhm.
Um, there was some a spectrum that I heard called the bank robber versus ASMR. Like, have
Oh,
you heard, ASMR, which is those videos where they make sounds that relax people,
oh yeah,
and it's all very quiet. So they get the bottle and like, this is a nice bottle. I'm touching it and I'm tapping it, and then they go, this is a pen. This is a nice pen, and I'm just giving that sound,
that is so
and they whisper it.
relaxing.
Yeah, and it actually slows down the person's nervous system. And then there's the bank robber. It's like that they want to get everyone's attention. And they're not just going, excuse me, excuse me. It's like that they're gonna, like at the wedding. It's like everyone.
Yeah,
So with the bank robber, it's like I don't think we have bank robberies like that since everything's been more digital.
yeah,
But maybe the '90s and that kind of thing. It's like everyone down on the ground. Or got this. So like you can do that, or you can do like the ASMR, and both of them can actually get people's attention.
yeah,
Because it's sometimes that if you're too loud too often, we tune out. It's like sometimes our parents like, go, like if they're always
yes,
doing that, the child
exactly.
adjusts and they're like, oh, so that's just standard. So I'll bring that sound to here. So it's normal. If you're there, I'll
Yeah,
react.
that's adaptation, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then there's like that social proof too. Like when you see like everyone's listening to this quiet person, you're like, I wonder what that's about. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, those values that you can tell, like if somebody's actually there to help or someone's just kind of a bit desperate. Um, and
oh,
whether
that's
it's
a
like,
whole other conversation we could have, like, about that because I teach a bit of that in my, I've just got a manifesting course that I kind of did on the side as like, the root cause therapy is healing all the past, but like also you've got to kind of look at like, okay, what reality do you want to create? And as a practitioner, as a business owner, it's like as your vibration, I guess you're going to create from the vibration that you are. And so if you've got your coat on of like, I need people to sign up to know that I'm good enough, or I need this person to sign up so I can pay my bill, or I'm, needing that validation through the results that you get, or, just being that desperate vibe, like you're saying, if you create from that space, you're just going to create more of that. And so
yeah,
you've got to kind of like step into who, like the goal that you want to achieve in your business or who you want to be as a person. You literally like need to step into that version of you now and then act from that space, and then all of a sudden you'll be there.
yeah,
And so that's like really important. And I know Oprah used to, I've heard an interview, and she used to, when everyone used to come up to her, like her staff, and bring forward an idea, she used to always ask, what's your intention behind that? And I love
yes.
that. What's your intention behind that?
She's got that sign like, you're responsible for the energy that you bring into this room.
Yeah, I
Um,
love it. Yeah.
or if you've seen perhaps this YouTube clip where there's this particular comedian He talks about your why versus your what.
Oh, okay.
And he gets somebody in the audience, this man who is a music teacher, and he said, "Can you please sing for me Amazing Grace?" And he sings it perfectly. It's like note for note, but very plainly, 100% perfect. The volume's great. And the crowd sits there and they're like, "That's good." And then he said, "Now, without me telling you how to do it, I'm just going to tell you why. Or without telling you what to do, I'm going to tell you why. That, like, your uncle's just got out of jail. He's been shot on the back on the way out. Now you're standing around that fire barrel singing Amazing Grace. He was close to signing.
Yeah.
He's like, do you have that? Does that exist?" And then he does Amazing Grace, and there's another 50 different notes in it. It's not just like amazing. It's like he does the whole, and then the crowd are all like touching him and like going yeah, and like the
Mm.
people at the back, like there's no low energy. Like the people all the way back there, they're cheering, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, so what's the difference? The first one, he basically said what to do. The second one, it's why to do it, and
Yeah.
it just changed everything. Like the
But you know
embodiment.
what? Like in saying that, it's like that's why we're so well, I'm so obsessed about emotions and why it's so important to bring that into your practice because emotions are really the driver of our behaviors.
Yeah,
So all he did was give a story to create an emotion, and then all of a sudden there was a different response.
yeah,
Um, and that's why it's so important when you want to change behaviors that you are working on the emotions level as well and working with that, just not just like the cognitive level, because the emotions are the body and yeah, they literally will make our body move and do things that perhaps we don't want to do, or react in ways that we don't want to react. And emotions amplify our thoughts, which then create the behaviors. Like, because in mainstream, they'll say, like, oh, first you have a thought, then the emotion, then the behavior. But actually, it's a perception, whether you're safe or not in the event, then a store, and then there's the emotion that your nervous system releases in reaction to that. And then
mm,
there's a thought and story created from that emotion, which then creates the behavior, right? It's just, it comes down
100%.
to that. Yeah. So it's like, that's why I'm just like, I actually originally called it emotions, what did I call emotional healing therapy? But Ryan made me change it because we wanted to kind of enter the market of changing mainstream therapy. That was our whole why. Why did we start the Center for Healing? We wanted to change the way that people were dealing with mental health and addiction. And we thought instead of fighting the system, we're going to infiltrate it, basically.
You guys are incredible, and I can't wait to meet Ryan and do a video with him.
Yeah,
We'll,
he'd love that.
yeah,
He's
we'll
normally
organize.
the interview video guy. I'm normally lurking in the background somewhere. So,
Oh yes, doing your import exports and bringing that. All
yeah.
right. So, how can people get to know you better? How can people get to? So, let's if we can make a bit of an offer, because I really believe that like what you have, not only is it really great today, but it will just continue to get better and better. Because from the conversations I've had with you, um, you bring the intellect to it, you bring the humility to it, and you really bring that embodiment to it. And it's kind of it's not that easy to bring all those things.
Hmm.
That there has to be something that causes it. And as you said, it's really spread around the world. So how
It
can people get
has.
to
It has.
it's
We've
incredible.
got qualified students in China, the UK, America, Canada, and we're internationally recognized and certified as well, in all these countries as well, or most countries. So they're not just getting a certificate, it's they're getting the accreditation, they can get insurance and everything as well. Like we did all that as well. So yeah, to find out about us, so you can go to the centerforhealing.com.au. We've got a bunch of interviews on there and blogs, but the main thing is you can click on to see our courses, and we always give a free pre-training. So we don't expect anyone to just look at a page and think, yeah, I'm in. Like we do share with you what is exactly in the course and what our thinking is behind it. And yeah, I've had moments where I'm like, is this really good? But literally every day we get so many reviews, testimonials, so much amazing feedback from people. So that really helps as practitioners helping people. But yeah, for your listeners, we're more than happy to organize 40% off. So I'll
Oh,
make
wow.
a special code. Yep.
Wow,
And
I didn't expect that, but that's fantastic.
yeah. And no worries. And so with root cause therapy, which is my course, we've got level 1 and 2, and at the check. So level 1 is like you can do level 1 and practice as a root cause therapist once you're certified. To get certification, you give 6 sessions and you have to receive 3 sessions, and then just send me the paperwork. But level 2 are just additional tools. So if you want to heal children, animals, you want to do life between life, like if you're interested in more of the spiritual work, there is some NLP stuff in there as well if you're interested in like anchoring and stuff like that. That you'll automatically get the option to 50% off when you buy root cause therapy. And some people, we made it actual, it's called the Ultimate Healing Business Bundle. So, because actually what happened was, and sorry, I've just taken over a bit here, but I'm just really excited.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened is when we had the healing center and we made systems and procedures for the staff to run the center, so it was all running like a well-oiled machine. By the way, my dad's German, so I think I got his like German like engineering thinking there. So basically, before we had a child, we're like, let's franchise this. So we want to expand, and we actually spent 30 grand and got a franchise consultant from Sydney and a lawyer, and we had it all ready to go to sell as a franchise, to open up more of the Centre for Healing. So as our priorities changed and we had a child, we literally put everything that you would get in a franchise, but it's basically white labeled. You just put your logo and stuff on it, all the documents, procedures, everything that you need comes with the course, no extra cost, that's included. So there's business and marketing training in there. If you want to like expand your current center, or you want to start, like even if people come in, they have no prior experience, or they come in and they've been doing this stuff for 20 years. So it doesn't matter where you're at, you can either improve it or start it or whatever. And yeah, so that's kind of like, and there's also a research course. So since 2016, I've been accumulating all the research that I've done and put it into a course. So there's like hundreds and hundreds of hours in there, just as a bonus as well. So it's, I think with the 40% off, it's like 960. So you get all of that. And you get lifetime access. There's no additional cost to get your certification or anything. We just wanted more people. Yeah, we just wanted more people to have this therapy in their toolkit to change lives. Because we had people coming in our healing center, they're like, wow, like everyone needs to do this. And we're in our little center in Southeast Melbourne going, how are we going to see everyone? Like, we were all like nearly burnt out. We were seeing 10 to 15 clients each a week, like 5 of us. So it was very like tiring, and we're like, how are we going to serve all these people? And then the answer was to give it away, basically.
Yeah, wow. That's really amazing. Hey, everyone, if you want to see more of Melissa, click the button and you'll get onto the Center of Healing. You'll get to meet Ryan. You'll get to meet more of Melissa's videos, and that root cause therapy discount, which is pretty amazing. If you're interested in any of that, please click the button. And I really recommend that you dig deep. Like I've just spent the last couple of days just doing video after video, and I really recommend that you get on top of this, guys.
Thank you.